Did you know that childcare programs can leave thousands of dollars on the table each year simply by not keeping track of open balances or collecting past due payments? Imagine the impact on your bottom line if you could prevent losses with few interruptions just by using a smart digital strategy. Welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I'm your host, Erica Sacosio. And today we are joined by Sasha Reese and Daniel Andrews, the founders of Playground. We're going to uncover how embracing technology can ensure that you're not missing out on any revenue, because we know every dollar counts. And you need your revenue to maintain a high quality program and keep your teachers, families, and communities happy. In today's episode, we're going to talk about some tech essentials, communication wins, billing made easy, and revenue protection. And of course, enrollment management, because that's the worst when you have a huge wait list and you don't know what to do with it. So let's welcome our guests, Sasha and Daniel, to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Erica, for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So I had the privilege to meet you at the Born to Teach conference, which was amazing connections. And I feel like all the vendors there were just super in tune with each other. It was such a good time. And I had the opportunity to hear a little bit about your background story. But for all of our friends who weren't there, why don't you share a little bit about what Playground is? Because it's not playground equipment outside. What Playground is, and a little bit about your origin story.
Absolutely. I love to talk about my origin story because it's actually my family. I grew up in and around my mom's childcare center. She ran a childcare center with 350 students. And I'm a technologist. I went to school in the Bay Area. I saw high tech. I saw how startups were working. And then I'd come back home and I'd see that so many processes were kind of stuck. And I made it my life's mission to see how much I can improve her business, her operations, make her life easier, families' lives easier, and also provide like a higher quality of childcare. But she had floor to ceiling file cabinets for all of her paperwork. She has to keep it for 5 years in California. So to me, that was crazy. I'd never actually seen a file cabinet anywhere outside my mom's office. She was collecting 350 paper checks. Parents would put their checks in the children's backpacks. And then when the teachers would go and grab the lunch boxes out, they'd take the checks and put them into the office. She had a huge binder in each classroom with all the allergies, emergency contacts, medications that the students are taking. And it was kind of scary when you had a substitute teacher who didn't know the children well. You could have accidentally fed them something wrong or not given them medication. And so we built Playground in order to serve my mom's school. I actually built it alongside my brother and Sasha, who's my mom's third son, essentially. But then the rest of my family is also in early child education, and they started using it. My aunt started off as a family child care owner and now runs 2 centers. My grandma is a preschool administrator. My sister's an occupational therapist for childcare. And so it's a whole family affair. But high level, what Playground is, we're an app and a website for managing childcare businesses. And our goal is to make sure it's the only software you need to run your center or program across the board. So anything you might need or any other systems where you're copying data back and forth, our goal is to eliminate that, make it easier for you, easier for your staff, and ultimately a better quality of care for the children.
So I'm laughing because, I'm old, and I'm laughing because I have the other filing cabinet, the one that's married to your mom's filing cabinet. I have that filing cabinet as well. So many of us, it sounds like your mom was running for like so many of us who've been in the business for a long time. You're right. The binders that literally cover end to end, and the bookcases, filing cabinets, all of the things. So I started using technology to run my business. I would say maybe about 6-7 years ago. So I wasn't very quick to move to that. Like so many other folks who may have been in the business a long time, or they're a little scared of technology. I will say I'm very happy that I have, moved to using technology to help run my business. It has made things a lot better. The folks at my bank don't really remember what I look like anymore because I don't go to the bank because everything is done electronically. But yeah, so I think that this is a time where people are looking at, not only because there's a lot of apps, not only do I need an app, because I think we've all come to the realization we need an app, but how do we know what is the right app for us or the right digital tool? And if I'm not using the correct terminology, feel free to jump in. But I'm going to call it an app. How do we know like what platform is the best for our businesses? Because everybody's business is a little different.
Absolutely. And truthfully, everybody's business is different. Like that is a fact. Everybody has their unique flares that they're adding. Ultimately, though, we're all in the service of children. We're all working in childcare. One fun thing, I'll let Sasha go into more about the product, but one fun thing about us, my grandma is now in her 70s, almost her 80s. She might kill me for saying that. But we developed something called the grandma test. Can my grandma figure out how to use our app, our software? And if she can, then we know we did something right. If we have to explain it to her, if we have to walk her through it, if we have to point to her where to click, we know that we messed up somewhere along the way, and we know that we need to go and fix that. But yeah, Sasha can talk about more about the software evaluation process.
Well, I think that piece is really interesting because when you are evaluating a software, it should pass the grandma test. It should be easy enough for you, but really for your, all your teachers, all your parents, not just your parents, but also their parents. Like you'll have grandparents coming in. You have to really consider everyone. Is this intuitive for everybody? I think that there's a couple other pieces when you are evaluating software, either if you've never implemented software at your childcare business before, or if you currently have one and you're evaluating if it still meets your needs. It's really important to go through and basically do an operational audit of how you're spending your time, how you and your team, for that matter, are spending your time. Are you doing things over and over again? Are you trying to balance and juggle multiple systems where you're plugging information into one system, taking it out of another? Because all those things are theoretically points on a list that you should go to and make sure that that software that you're looking at actually meets those needs. I think at a very tangible level, at least like the way that Playground is approaching it, there's a couple really big pieces that we try to focus on. And like Daniel said, our goal here is to streamline everything and consolidate it as much as possible. So if you're looking at not just your core functionality, like collecting payments from families and attendance and communication, but also how are you paying your teachers? Are you using a separate app for that? How are you doing your marketing and how are you getting new leads into the door? Are you using a separate app for that? Are you not doing anything at all? Those are all things that you should be looking at to see, hey, is this something that we can put all into one? And we can definitely go into more depth there, but at the end of the day, you want to spend as little time as possible managing different systems and as much time as possible leveraging them so that you can automate away that tedious work and so that you can spend your time on the higher leverage stuff that moves the needle forward.
Okay, and I love the grandma test. And that's very true, and no, because I'm thinking about my center, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We have some grandparents who come pick up, and we're like, oh yeah, just scan the QR code. They're like, I don't even have a phone, my dear, and I'm like, so being able to have a variety of ways. So when people log in and out, do they have a PIN number? Is that how that would work?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways. Again, it's important to us that Playground that we are meeting people where they're at. So whether it's a PIN, whether it's a QR code, whether it's enabling the teacher or the administrator to do it themselves on their own iPad or on the computer, there's honestly a lot of different ways. And usually when someone works with Playground, we have world-class folks on our onboarding team where they'll put together a specialized plan and ask them, hey, like, what do your parents prefer? What do your grandparents prefer? And then here's the best way to accomplish that in Playground.
Okay. So let's say I'm a center that isn't using any digital communication right now. What would your advice be, or what's the easiest way to transition smoothly from traditional binder filing cabinets to a digital communication method?
That's a great question. And that's one that we hear very frequently because we talk with folks all the time about this. I think the number one thing is thinking about if you've been doing this, running this business for 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of things that you're doing, a lot of processes are probably not broken, so why fix them? At the same time, it's important to take a step backwards and be like, what am I spending a ton of time doing? Am I manually filling out and punching in families' like enrollment paperwork across multiple places? How long does it take me to process these files? what am I losing by spending this time on this, right? Like it could be that's your Saturday morning. Maybe you're not able to sleep in or go to your grandkids' baseball game. Who knows? But there's options out there for you to eliminate that kind of tedious administrative work.
One thing I'll say is for in terms of like adopting communication, if you've never had before, one of the most significant or powerful things we've seen is the emergency alert system that we offer with like texting, app notifications, and emails. My mom's school is very large, but this also applies even if you have 20 families. If there's an emergency and you need to make 20 phone calls really quickly because you have a fire or there's a tornado or some emergency you need to vacate the building, making 20 calls or 50 calls or in my mom's case 350 calls is just not feasible. And so just having that system in place to be able to type a message, press send from your phone from anywhere, and immediately it'll send a text message to every single family is kind of crazy. And so that modern technology enables us to have that. And so something like that, you could start expanding out to when our days off, or reminders for pickups, or reminders for a fundraiser, or a back to school night, or an open house. And so there's ways to kind of dip your toes in, see that value, and realize, wow, I didn't have to make 50 calls today. I just kind of pressed the button and it was there. Your parents will thank you. Your parents will be.
And yeah, I think your managers will thank you too. So I can tell you that we had a digital platform during COVID. And so when the regulations were changing all the time, over the weekend, somebody could message me and say, my kid tested positive for COVID. And we were able to send a blast to all those families almost immediately of here's what happened. Here's what you need to do. Here are the next steps, that kind of thing. So that was really was priceless during COVID, and hopefully we won't have COVID ever again like that. But just saying, but that's a great thing. And I also live in New England, so we get snow, and sometimes you have to close the school for snow. We wait I hate to say right up to the last minute because I really try not to close, but we do wait right until we see is there actual snow. I don't close for predicted snow. So that has been really, really helpful at our center, just being able to communicate really quickly, to not having to call 35 staff and say, hey, we're closed tomorrow, right? Just literally, here's the message, boom, one button, and everybody got the notification at the same time. So I definitely see the value in it. So let's talk about, let's talk about money. So what are the most common billing mistakes that you see, or billing challenges that you see, and how can your platform help prevent some of it?
There's a lot of nuance to come in with billing. It seems really easy. Someone signs up for a weekly or a monthly charge or whatnot, and then they just get billed. It is never like that. For example, let's say you are raising rates this year and you give staff a 10% discount. You have to go and recalculate that 10% discount for everybody, or whatever that discount might look like. And so if you're doing that paper and pencil, knowing that these numbers are wrong, somebody has automated payments set up with you or something, and your system doesn't adapt to that, it causes a huge issue. Another issue is incidental billing. We see so many people who are scared of even implementing incidental billing, like before care, or after care, or lunch programs, or late pickup fees, late payment fees, because of the amount of time it takes to manage those different processes. And so we see that being like a very big and difficult undertaking for many people.
I think a big piece there is folks don't realize how much money they're leaving on the table because of, granted, it doesn't seem significant to like track and bill someone for, okay, you were here 4 minutes late, I'm going to charge you an extra $2. But like very quickly, those fees add up depending on what you're, let's say, again, like that pickup policy as an example, that adds up very, very quickly, especially because you have to incur, maybe it's a bit of overtime for that staff that has to stay behind. The other piece there is like, how do you bill? And I think one big thing that we see, a best practice at least, is like billing in advance of care. Folks should be billing for the enrollment slot, not the actual attendance. And I think that sometimes is like a hot take in the industry, but it's a really good way to ensure that you are maintaining your cash flow as a business owner. You're getting cash in advance of care. You are securing that you're able to pay for a staff member to be there for that enrollment slot. And it also helps introduce a bit of stability for the rest of the kids in the program, the rest of the families in the program, the rest of the staff in the program. I think overall it is a big win, and is one that some folks, when they implement from going, billing in arrears to billing in advance, see like this like aha moment. What have you seen?
Yeah. I feel like, well, there was a lot of things. I felt like where it helped is, well, one, I used to do QuickBooks. And so I used to have to print out statements, send it to my directors, who then had to give them the parents. So there was a delay there. Sometimes payments would cross over. So now when I talk to a parent on the phone, we can look at the same thing at the same time. We can go over their statement together. So that I thought was invaluable. Also, I think if I missed a vacation week or they missed a vacation week, we were able to find discrepancies pretty quickly. I think definitely having the money just flow right to the bank has really been a godsend. And again, just keeping that cash flow, because a lot of us are super busy. I mean, I'll speak for myself. Maybe I'm the only director who works in their center and sometimes is in a classroom and can't make it to a bank for like 3 days, but I'm probably the only one that happens to.
Right.
But just being able to have your money just going really quickly, is great. I would say that was probably the best thing, was having the money go in quickly and then also being able to find any discrepancies. I also love not having to print out end of the year tax forms. They had all their information there. They literally could print it out. Like, that alone saved me so much time. It used to be the parents would put their name on a list. Okay, we need a tax form, and and then you would have to print it out from QuickBooks, and it just was a lot of steps, where now they can literally print it out, the federal ID number, this is it, print out for the year, and they had their information right there. So it works really nicely. So ease for them too, like you said, it isn't just just about us, but ease for the parents too. Especially if you have people who switch off and pay, because there's families where they alternate which parent is paying. There's a lot of different things like that. We have folks that get childcare where it also helps you find kids who fall out of subsidy, because again, if you don't have a huge office team, right? Kids fall out of subsidy all the time. If you don't catch it, weeks can go by without you getting paid and not catching it. Where if you're invoicing them through the subsidy, when you get your money and you go to put it in, you go, aha, I didn't get paid for Johnny, and you catch it a lot quicker, right? You're laughing because but these are real issues that we all face day after day. And so one of the things that I really, really is so close to my heart is, we all know that the childcare industry is going through it right now. That's the nicest way to say it. Going through it, there's a lot of changes. If I can save 2 childcare centers from this podcast, I will be fulfilled. Like, I want to make sure that as many childcare centers stay open as possible. And this is an area that I feel like, if we can make sure that we collect all the money that is due to us. Also, if you're picking up other revenue sources, like you had mentioned earlier, the federal food program, right? It's a lot easier if you have something tracking it for you than paper and pen. And I'm just going to say it because I've been there, counting the tick marks and going, okay, this is the number of kids who ate breakfast. I know you're shaking your head, but this is the reality that we lived in 10 years ago, right? I've been doing this for 25 years. So this is a very real reality. And so now that I use the platform that I use, I'm able to pull things up quickly. Same thing for DHS. When they audit you and they say, okay, I need to see your attendant records for this billing period, you're hitting a button. You're not going downstairs to the filing cabinet and pulling all these papers out. And so this can really help you not get in trouble with your audit. It can help you make sure you're maximizing your money that's coming in and going out. So I didn't mean to take over the show, guys. So let's go back to Playground. But this is the real life of what we're living. So
It is transformational, though. It really is just like a step function up in quality of life and running your business. So there's a lot to say.
yeah. Share an example with us of a customer maybe that you feel like Playground has really significantly improved their childcare center operations, and maybe how.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think one comes to mind immediately. This great guy, Jermaine, out in Long Island in New York, runs Little Minds Universe. And I remember I met him for the first time at a Childcare Success Summit event, the Chris Murray events. And he stopped by the booth and we started chatting about what he's up to. Obviously, I'm always super curious to learn more about how folks are running their childcare businesses. And he was telling me about, I think he was using 7 different systems at the time for I think QuickBooks for billing. There was a Facebook group for communication. He was, I think, paying for HubSpot or some other CRM to get leads through the door. ADP for payroll. DocuSign, of course, a huge one for the enrollment. I'm sure missing one or two others. But it was just like this insane, almost like Frankenstein of, I mean, definitely it was better than nothing, but still just like almost as much time spent on managing these different systems. And when I showed him Playground and like all that he could consolidate, it was like mind blown. So I mean, out of the box, just in terms of cutting all the software spend, he was able to save just directly $500 or $600 per month just off the bat. But also immense savings from an hour perspective each month on not having to juggle those tasks anymore. So now we have payroll in one, we have CRM in one. Never has to leave the system. The gains there for him also were now he could put that money into staff salaries or bonuses for folks that are sticking around. We're super duper close with him, and so continuing to work to make sure that the system is being developed and continue to get enhanced to meet his growing needs. But I think that's one of the most profound experiences that we've heard, where folks were able to see Playground implemented and then immediately take the gains made from it and implement it into other parts of their business that would also benefit.
Okay. I wanted to ask, so this is probably not a good question, but this is not on the pre-questions, guys. Here's my question for you. It's a question that probably several people are thinking about. So how long have you been in business? How long has Playground been around?
5 years now.
Okay. So what continually has happened to us in the last 7 years is people keep buying out other people's businesses. I don't mean childcare businesses, but platforms. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what is it, what does that look like? What do you guys think? Do you think that this is something that people can expect? Because it's very frustrating when you just learn a system. Because this happened to me. This is why I'm bringing it up. And I belong to so many Facebook groups that I cannot tell you how many times this question comes up. What app are you guys using? Because I heard this one was selling to this one, or this one isn't working right. So what are your thoughts about that? Because it's very common. I see it in Facebook groups literally every day.
First, my mom would kill me. So let's start there. This for us is like a life business. This is like our life's work. We think that the industry needs a lot of help in a lot of places. I think there's a lot of work to be done. On some of those things we can't control, we could try to influence, like government policy, funding, regulation, licensing, all of these other aspects, these things that make us shake our fist. But there's some things that we do have control over, like, me as a business owner now of Playground, to kind of impact, and especially my family and our family friends. And that really is that like operational side of the back office piece. Not necessarily as much in the classroom with the teachers, the education. Almost every educator I meet is fantastic. And they really care. They're really deeply passionate about the work they do. But that back office piece is not as exciting. And one of the most frustrating things for us, and I go on rants about this, is I think a lot of people have built something and then kind of stop. And they haven't built like the platform. There's always like those itches, those things that slightly annoy you, that keep getting you back, your messaging support. And like, we want to be there to be the change in the industry. We want to show what can be done. We want to show what we can actually build, that we can build something amazing. And then we also want to influence that government policy wherever we can. We now are working with several states across the country. We're working with a bunch of NGOs across the country, Shared Service Alliances, Childcare, where someone you mentioned as well, in order to try to help shape and influence policy. Try to make it easier for licensing, so you're not scrambling through documents. Like, we train licensing now to find those paperwork and documents. All this to say is that, like, my entire family's in this. I built this with my brother. This is kind of our life's work. This is what we're going to be working on for the next 10, 20 years. We have no interest in selling. I don't know how else to like really clarify that, but I think people really
you answered that question perfectly. And I'm going to tell you why. There's two things that I absolutely love about that. One, I love that you are a small business owner. Please do not ever lose sight of that, because once people start getting really, really big, they kind of forget that. So I want to applaud you for that. The other thing that you said that really resonates with my heart is that you care about our industry, because sometimes people just come into this industry because it's a lucrative industry, or it was. But you know, it was a lucrative industry. People come in, they capture the money, and then they're out. And so I love that you have that personal family connection, and that you understand for many years now what it takes to really run a childcare center. So that's why I asked that question, because I do think that's one of the things that can separate you from some of the big guys, in a good way, So please never lose sight of that. I love it. Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about the best things about your program, what you think makes it different besides you guys, because you guys are amazing. Besides that, tell us a little bit about what you think functionality wise, what makes you a little bit different than some of the bigger other apps out there.
Absolutely. I think a lot of this just kind of comes from the lived experiences also. So I'll talk about product a little bit, but I think, there's a lot more than that when you buy software.
Mhm.
You're buying like the whole experience that comes along with it. So for example, like I used to sit in my mom's office at her preschool and listen to angry parents come in because they were upset about how some billing thing was going on or some paperwork that was missing. And I like deeply understand and empathize with those families, and then also the administrator who has to deal with it. So like one thing, for example, is like we aim to respond to all inquiries, like all support requests, all help questions, anything else, 30 seconds. Like our goal is to really just be there where they need us. While that angry parent's still in the office, can we help you and make sure that we can resolve this, and not like support will get back to me in 2 to 3 days. The onboarding Sasha mentioned before is very personalized and one-on-one. We work in a service industry. Parents are dropping off their children for the first time. Oftentimes it's the first time they're ever separated from their children for more than a few hours at a time. And so it's a very emotional experience. It's very tough, but we're here to serve them, and we're here to serve those who serve them as well with the software piece. And so that onboarding piece where you intimately know and get, some people get to know some of our support reps or onboarding reps really well, actually. Like people are sending each other back and forth Christmas cards and holiday greetings and everything else. But that's more like how we interact with our customers, how we interact with the people that use Playground. And I do think that's important. I think that's something that we really spend a lot of time and effort on. The other piece is the product itself, right? Childcare is changing, as you said, last 7 years, we've been through it. We are releasing new products, new features, upgrades, enhancements. We release like 20 or 30 of them a week. And we post that publicly for everyone to see, including our competitors, because we know that we can move faster than anybody else. And we actually don't care if our competitors copy us. It's lifting the entire industry. If they find that we do something great and they can reproduce it, like we want that. We think that the whole industry will grow because of it, and we're excited about it. But we want to lead that charge, and now we are leading that charge, like paperwork, right? Where people are able to fill out paperwork online. That is the first product that we actually built outside of attendance. And so we now see that as becoming a more common thing that we led the charge with. And so we see the whole entire industry elevating from that. And, I still think we have the best overall of all of those different functionalities that we build. But, we are releasing these new things. We are building these new things that really change the game for people. In terms of existing products, Sasha,
yeah.
To that.
I mean, I think right now there's no one else in the space that has the core childcare management platform that, you are familiar with and know and love. But folks also have access to payroll all in one, CRM and marketing automation in one, food program management, really like the entire gambit all in one, not having to use integrations or buy other products that maybe they talk a little bit to each other. It's all housed in one place under one login. We can get like infinitely more granular and detailed there, but like at a high level, our goal is to keep everything all in one. So if you're using a Gusto or an ADP, you could say goodbye and you could just get that in Playground. But that's like at a high level how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it almost sounds like you should have named this the director's assistant or something, because that's what it really feels like. It feels like giving your director an assistant. So if you have multiple locations, do you have the one function, or do you have to have multiple accounts? One function. Like
so
one dashboard. That's really what I want to say.
we have what we call a multi-site dashboard. And so we give you all the dashboards breakdowns of everything across all of your locations. We have all the roles and permissions to manage access to make sure people can only see what they're supposed to see. And then we have like the single site location management as well. So
Awesome.
like some multi-site owners we see will set rates across all of their locations, and they can create that at the multi-site level. And then, like, for example, their directors can only just charge people at those rates. They can't add their own discounts or other pieces. Other times, that's a lot more adjustable, and so you can go and adjust that. But this way, you can see all of your finances across the board. You can see all of your enrollments across the board. You can see all of your expenses across the board. You can track your entire P&L in one place for multi-site owners. But then also you can have that granular control at the per center level as well.
I think what's also interesting there is you're able to pull reports across all the locations. And if you want to drill into, I want to see, what collections look like at this location versus a second location, you could identify who's doing better and then drill in and be like, okay, what are they doing differently that I can then implement across the rest of my locations, ultimately benefiting and improving collections across the board. So we have a ton of ability for you at that level.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need accurate real-time data to make good business decisions for sure. So every director is at the edge of their chair right now wanting to know, how do they get their free demo to talk with you guys and see if you're the right tool for them? Give them all the info.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are interested in learning more, feel free to visit us online at tryplayground.com. Or you can call or text us at 310-625-3726.
I'm going to say I called their office tonight and I got Benny in 2 seconds. When I called for Benny, they said, hold on, and I got Benny. So that was a nice, refreshing experience. So folks, I'm going to put the link down below. As always, thank you for tuning in day after day. If you found today's episode valuable, don't miss out on future insights and expert advice. Subscribe to the Childcare Directors Share podcast today. Hit the subscribe button wherever it falls on our screen, and join our community of childcare professionals who are committed to excellence. Your next big idea for boosting efficiency, revenue could be just one episode away. So hit that subscribe button as always, and thank you. And remember, it's the little details that make a big difference in the success of your childcare business. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Erica.